Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. Welcome back to Surup IT Learning Solutions. So, welcome to the new video series. So, in this particular video, we'll learn how to install, configure, and manage VMware Hypervisor version 8 infrastructure. So this will be a kind of a long series, maybe of 8-9 parts, and it will be a lot of technical stuff, including it uh, installing your VMware hypervisor ESX servers, then vCenter servers, then installing your virtual machines, then configuring your vMotion, HADRS. So all those things we will learn in this particular video series. So what exactly we will be learning? So we will practically execute the following steps in this particular video series. So first, we will be installing a VMware workstation for our lab setup on our Windows 2022 base host system, that is our physical system. Then second, we will be installing 2022 server as an Active Directory domain controller through VMware workstation as a first virtual machine. Okay, then we will be implementing our vSAN, that is ESXi target server, for our ESXi 8 environment. So everything, the data store or the storage, we will be installing through our SAN, that is our ESXi target server. We will be not using any local storage. Okay, why that is required, I will explain you in the later part whenever that particular steps comes. Okay, next is we will be installing our first ESX host version 8.0 and through VMware workstation, and second virtual machine as a second virtual machine. So first virtual machine will be installing as our domain controller, and second virtual machine will be our first ESX host. Okay, now this is a bit of confusing to understand that ESX itself is hosting the virtual machines. So why we are installing it as a VM itself? Because in a lab setup we don't have those many physical systems available. Okay, so basically in a production environment you will be installing your ESX server on a physical machine, and that physical machine, once installed as an ESX, those physical machines will be hosting your virtual machines. But here we'll be doing a nested virtualization. Means first we will install VMware workstation. Inside that VMware workstation we will be installing our ESX host as a virtual machine, and then we'll be installing further nested virtual machines on that ESX host also. Okay, so don't get confused as of now. Everything will get clear step by step once that particular step is coming into practical mode. Okay, so next is after installing the first ESX host, we will be installing the second ESX host, of course, through the VMware workstation as our third virtual machine. Now why two ESX hosts? Because I want to show you the vMotion part, I want to show you the HA part, I want to show you the ESX cluster part. So for those all those functionalities, at least two ESX hosts needs to be in place. Okay, one ESX host will not work as an vMotion or something like that. So I'm installing two ESX hosts for this particular lab setup. Okay, so next is, once those two ESX hosts has been installed, we will be installing vCenter server as a nested VM. So vCenter server version 8, and this nested VM will be hosted on ESX host 01. Now this is a very important and maybe a very complicated topic, how to install a vCenter server. I can directly install it as a VMware workstation virtual machine, but that is actually giving me a lot of complications, lot of errors and service. What I have found a way to run as a nested virtual machine. That means I will be installing this vCenter server as a VM through my ESX host as a nested VM. Okay, and this vCenter will be, we will be using it for managing our ESX host. So again and again I am saying, as of now it may sound very confusing to you, but don't worry about it. We'll do every step in detail and I will explain that step for you guys, so don't get confused as of now. Next is we'll be installing our Windows 11 client machine or client nested virtual machine, which will be getting hosted on ESX host 02. So second ESX host. Okay. Next is we'll be implementing and testing following features in ESXi 8 environment. So what are the functionalities we'll be testing? We'll be testing vMotion, how to vMotion a particular live VM. We will be installing an HA, high availability feature, and we will be installing a DRS, distributed resource scheduler. And of course, with these functionalities, we will be actually doing a ESX host clustering also. We will be creating one cluster also, which will be consisting over both ESX hosts. So lots of practicals, lots of technical steps are coming. I'm very excited to share it with you guys. So let's see. So let's start. So first we need to clear some theoretical concepts for our virtualization. So let's see. So for this particular course outline, who will be the intended audience? So IT engineers with basic understanding of virtualization technology, then Windows and Linux administration, and network and storage administration. So these three technologies are coming into picture. If you are having a basic understanding of all those three technologies, you will be good to go for this particular course. So as I said, understanding the theoretical concepts of virtualization. So first of all, let me clear out your theoretical concepts for virtualization and other technologies. Then we will go into practical mode. So overview of virtualization. So what is virtualization? Then we will be seeing types of virtualization, that is hardware, OS, and network and storage. Then benefits of virtualization. Why should we go for the virtualization? Then introduction to the VMware vSphere suite. So what is VMware vSphere? Then vSphere components, that is your vCenter server, ESXi host, vSphere clients and all. So everything is included in a vSphere components. Then vSphere editions overview. So there are three editions available: standard, enterprise, and enterprise plus. So what are the differences between those editions? So coming to the first theoretical point, overview of virtualization. So what is virtualization? So virtualization is the process of creating a software based virtual version of computing resources such as servers, storage devices, networks, or even an operating system. So it enables multiple virtual machines like VMs to run on a single physical machine, with each VM isolated and capable of running its own OS and applications. So what is hypervisor? So hypervisor is a software layer that allows virtualization by decoupling hardware from the operating system. So what are the types of virtualizations? So first is hardware virtualization, that is server virtualization. So it uses a hypervisor. So example like VMware ESXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, to create virtual machines. So this hardware layer of virtualization directly runs on your hardware layer. So each VM includes its own operating system and apps isolated from others. Next type of virtualization is operating system virtualization. So in this particular virtualization, it virtualizes your OS layer like containers like Docker or LXC. Then multiple containers share the same OS kernel but are isolated from each other. Next virtualization type is network virtualization. So it abstracts your network resources like switches, routers, firewalls, means those physical network devices. So example like VMware NSX, Cisco, ACI. And the last type of virtualization is storage virtualization. So it pulls physical storage from multiple devices into a single logical volume like SAN. Then example is like VMware vSAN or StarWind vSAN. Okay, so these are the types of virtualization in the market currently available. So next point is what are the benefits of virtualization? Why should we go for the virtualization? So first and the foremost benefit is resource optimization. So it maximizes the hardware utilization. That means in a single particular piece of hardware, single piece of server, you can run multiple operating systems. Next is cost efficiency, reduces the capital and operational expenses. Of course, a single server will cost you less than the 10 different physical servers. Example I'm just giving. Next is isolation and security. So VMs runs independently. That means in a single machine, the multiple VMs can run by their own application or operating system securities. So they are completely independent from each other. Next is high availability. So minimizes the downtime via clustering. So unlike your physical machine, if it goes down, the complete operating system is shut off. But in a virtual environment, you can configure the cluster so that the virtual machine can automatically vMotion to the next available physical host. So this particular feature, vMotion or HA, we will practically test it in upcoming practical steps. The next benefit is disaster recovery. So easier VM replication and backup. So it is much more easier to take a backup of a particular virtual machine or a complete virtual machine image rather than a physical server's image or application. The next is scalability and flexibility. So fast provisioning and scalability. So unlike your physical machines where you need to install the operating system from scratch, it will take more time, it will take more efforts. In a virtual machine, you can simply clone it, you can create templates, you can create duplicate virtual machines, and you can provision it more faster than the actual physical machines. And then the next benefit is energy efficiency. So fewer physical servers, lower power usage. So of course, as I said, let's say I'm having 5 virtual machines in a single physical server, so it will only consume my physical one server's power rather than 5 different physical machines. So next point is, since we are now go through for the virtualization, so next point is introduction to the VMware vSphere. So what is VMware vSphere suite? So what is vSphere? So VMware vSphere is a VMware's enterprise grade virtualization platform, often referred to as a virtual data center OS. So it enables you to virtualize and manage and compute storage and network resources. So you can manage computers, you can manage storage, you can manage network resources through your VMware vSphere virtualization suite. So what are the vSphere core components? So first component is ESX host. And what is ESX host? The hypervisor layer installed on a physical hardware to host virtual machines. Next component is your vCenter server. So it's centralized platform for managing ESX host and VMs from a single pane. That means if you are having, let's say, 5 ESX hosts, 10 ESX hosts, even 100 ESX hosts, you can manage it from one central console. So vCenter server allows you to manage those ESX hosts from a central console. So in this particular video series, we will be installing our vCenter server also, and we will see how to manage our ESX hosts through that. And the next component is of course vSphere client. So it's a web-based interface to access and manage vCenter and ESXi. So this is actually a web-based console through which you can actually manage your vCenter server and ESXi host also. So next point is what are the vSphere editions available in the market. Overview of vSphere editions, that is version 8. So what are the editions and what are its key features? So standard edition, that is 8. So it's a basic virtualization vCenter. It is containing your ESX virtualization host vCenter, and then it is containing your vMotion and HA features. Then the next one is Enterprise Plus, that adds your DRS, then distributed switch, host profiles, storage DRS, etc. So Enterprise Plus are having some extra features available. And the next version is vSphere Essential or Essential Plus. So it is suitable for small businesses, includes 3 hosts plus vCenter. So depending upon your company size or enterprise size, you can choose the suitable edition for your company. So the licensing for these particular vSphere editions is based on per CPU socket on or vSphere Plus subscription in version 8. Next point is overview of new features in vSphere 8. So what are the new features available for vSphere 8 version? So first feature is vSphere Distributed Service Engine, that is DPU offload. So it offloads networking and security functions to smart NICs, that is your DPUs, that is Distributed Service Engine offload. Next is your VM hardware version 20. So enhance and virtual NUMA, latency sensitivity and performance tuning. So it enhances your NUMA and then latency sensitivity and performance tuning for VMware hardware version 20. And then vSphere lifecycle manager enhancements. So it is improved cluster image management and firmware integration. And then next feature is AI or ML workload optimization. So better GPU support and policy based provisioning for ML or DL workloads. And then last feature is vSphere Green Matrix plugin. So power and carbon footprint visibility within this particular feature. So these are all new features available in vSphere version 8. So next is your key features in vCenter ESXi. So the vCenter server in version 7, the Photon OS or embedded PSC it was running. In version 8, it is still running on Photon OS, but it is having improved performance and DPU support. Then ESXi enhancements in version 7, it is having VMware hardware version 19. In VMware version 8, it is having VMware version hardware version 20 plus TPM 2.0 only install support. Then vSphere client, so it is based on HTML5 based on a mature platform, and in vSphere 8 it is a refined user interface, enhanced performance. It is still on HTML5 but it is having a refined user interface and performance is enhanced. And then the last feature is licensing. So in version 7 it is socket based or per VM option. In version 8 it is vSphere plus subscription model introduced. So you can actually subscribe to your license, let's say 1 year, 2 year, whatever period you want, and then you can go for the licensing mode accordingly. So now theoretical concepts are over. Now let's review the VMware vSphere virtualization lab setup, what we are actually doing in our lab setup or in this particular video series. So I have prepared one lab setup. Let me just go back to that lab setup, and this is the lab setup what we have prepared for this particular video series. So at the first look it might look very big or complicated one, but I will try to explain it in a simpler manner. So the first machine over here showing, it is a physical machine, my physical workstation for which the host name is Win 2022 base. It's a physical workstation. It's having 128 GB RAM and 1 TB hard disk, and its VMware VMnet IP address is 192.168.1.1 and 10.1. Two VMnet adapters are installed. How those are installed, that we will see later on. But as of now, just note down the IP address of these ones. Okay, and currently it is running on Windows 2022 Data Center Desktop Experience operating system. Okay, so its role is it's holding out my VMware workstation virtualization host. That means, let's say this is my physical machine only. Let me just go back to my desktop. This is my physical machine, and I'm just going to the properties of this machine. You can see the name is Win 2022 base, and 128 GB RAM and other hard disk and other, and operating system is 2022 data center desktop one. Okay, so this particular physical machine will be used for installing our VMware workstation. Okay, and after that, installing after VMware workstation, we will be deploying three virtual machines over here. 1, 2, 3. What are those virtual machines? What are its details? That I'm just explaining in 2 minutes. But as of now, just consider this as a physical machine. After this physical machine, what we are doing is, on this physical machine, it is used for our VMware workstation host. So we will be installing our VMware workstation, that is latest edition, whatever it is available in the current version 17.5 or 17.6. So we will be installing VMware workstation on this particular physical machine. Okay, once that is installed through VMware workstation, we will be creating two subnet masks, means two subnet IP addresses ranges. What are those ones? So this is network subnet mask 1. So it will be running on 192.168.1.x range. X means 1.1 to 1.254, whichever IP we might give. So this is one subnet mask. Second subnet mask will be 192.168.10.x, means starting with 10 and then 1, 2, 3, whatever. Okay, why these two network masks are there, how to create those network masks through VMware workstation, everything we will see when we are going into the practical mode. So don't worry about it. Okay, now after this subnet masks have been created, we will be creating three virtual machines through VMware workstation. We will be creating three virtual machines. So what are those three virtual machines? First one is Win 2022 DC. It is running on VMware Workstation Type 2 VM. That means through VMware Workstation, we will be creating this Type 2 VM. What do you mean by Type 2? Since VMware Workstation is a virtualization software, it is running on application layer. So whatever VM we are creating furthermore or through VMware Workstation, it will be a Type 2 VM. If I am having a physical server, let's say, and if my ESXi is directly getting installed on hardware layer, it is a Type 1 VM, whichever VM I am creating through ESX. But if I am creating any VM through my software layer or application layer, then it will be a Type 2 VM. Okay, so the first VM, Type 2 VM, will be Windows 2022 DC. Okay, now what are its properties? The RAM will be 16 GB. And its hard disk will be 100 GB, virtual hard disk of course, and another hard disk, second hard disk is 600 GB, that can be used for ESXi scan. So ESXi SAN target server also we will be creating on this particular server. Okay, so its IP will be 192.168.1.100, then 192.168.1.34 for SAN, and then 192.168.10.100 for your HA and vMotion connectivity. Okay, so these three IPs will be assigned to this particular virtual machine. Operating system will be of course 2022 server data center desktop experience, and then its role will be your Active Directory domain controller. This will be acting as an Active Directory domain controller and ESXi target server also. So it will be holding two roles, EDDS and ESXi target servers. So this will be our first VM. Our second VM will be our first ESX host. ESX host 01 host name. It will be a VMware workstation, again type 2 virtual machine. Again, I am saying don't get confused. ESX itself is an hypervisor or a virtualization software, but we are installing it through VMware workstation as a type 2 VM, because in lab setup we don't have physical machines and all. Okay, so it will be acting as a type 2 VM. RAM will be 48 GB for this ESX host. HDD will be 100 GB. Again, local means VMDK file, virtual hard disk 100 GB, and it will be having two IPs. 192.168.1.7. This is for the primary network connectivity, and second IP will be 10.7. 192.168.10.7. This will be for the HA and vMotion connectivity. Okay. Its OS will be ESX Hypervisor 8, and its role will be ESX Hypervisor Virtualization Host. Okay, so this will be acting as our first ESX host, and similar to this first ESX host, we'll be creating another ESX host, ESX host 02. As I said earlier, we will be requiring at least two ESX hosts to hold out your HA, vMotion, DRS or cluster functionalities. So this will be like exact replica of this particular ESX host 01, ESX host 02. Rest of the configurations are same. Type will be your type 2 VM, RAM will be 48 GB, HDD will be 100 GB, similar to the ESX host 1. IP will be different. Here it is 1.16 and 10.16. Okay, because these two are different ESX hosts. Of course, OS will be same, ESX hypervisor, and role will be also same. Okay, so these are two ESX hosts what we are installing, and all these three VMs we will be installing through our VMware workstation. Okay. Now, furthermore, once these three machines are up, we will be installing our first nested VM. That is our VM which will be getting hosted by ESX hosts. So ESX host 01 will be hosting one nested VM, which is our vCenter server. Okay. Now let me explain you why I have chosen this vCenter server as a nested VM. Okay, I have searched a lot of articles and a lot of videos on YouTube and all. So what they are doing is they are installing our vCenter server as a fourth VM through VMware workstation only. Okay, so that is also quite possible. But then we are requiring to modify a lot of configuration files, and we need to enter some additional parameters. I have done all that also, but after that, when installing vCenter server, it was giving me the error around about 80 to 85% of installation is completed, and then it is giving me error that services are not running or services are not getting started on time and all these things. So I got tired on those errors, and then finally I decided let's try another way. So nested VM, and in nested VM the installation got through very successfully. I have installed it 2-3 times again and again just to see, and it went all successful. So finally I decided to move it on to the nested VM, the virtual center server. Okay, so through virtual center server, actually ESX host is holding, but through virtual center server we are further again managing our ESX host only. Okay, so don't get confused over here, just try to understand. But anyways, if you are not understanding as of now, no problem. Once we are getting to the practical mode, you will get feel of everything. And our last VM, which will be hosted by our next ESX host, ESX host 02. This will be our client virtual machine, Windows 11 CL. So it is actually running on Windows 11 23H2 version 64-bit. Okay, and for this particular VM, ESX host is ESX host 02. This particular VM vCenter ESX host is ESX host 01. Okay, and this vCenter, like in previous what do you say hypervisor versions, vCenter server was getting installed on Windows operating system as an application, but then VMware stopped doing that, and now vCenter server is having its own dedicated operating system, and it is open source based operating system. It is called Photon, and version is 3.0 open source. Okay, so this operating system we will be installing through our nested VM. and its role will be vCenter server 8. Okay, so these two are nested VMs, right? So this is a kind of an lab setup, and all those what do you say, lines over here, and it looks like a spider cam but those ones are the connectivities, different connectivities. So you can see over here I've just marked it with the color. So the green lines are your VMware workstation VMnet, means the VMware workstation network connectivity. So the VMware workstation is connected through VMnet adapters, virtual adapters, to your DC first VM, second VM also, and third VM also. So this is your normal practical or primary network connectivity. The second one is also a secondary network connectivity, that is VMnet 3, and again it is connected to all three virtual machines, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. The third one is Active Directory Domain Controller connectivity, AD connectivity. It is connected only to one VM. So if you can see over here, it is connected to our Windows 11 CL. Since once created this VM, we will be joining it to our domain controller. Okay. And the last one is ESXi or SAN connectivity. So our both ESX hosts are connected to our virtual SAN or ESXi scan, which it's actually getting hosted on our DC system. How to do that, everything we will be covering in practical mode, so don't worry about that. Okay, so this is a kind of an lab setup I have just prepared for your understanding what we are doing. If you are still not understanding what is lab setup, you can pause this video, reverse this, and listen to this explanation again. Okay, and once we are getting into practical mode, you will be getting more feel that what actually each VM will be doing, what is nested VM, how to create that one, how to create your SAN connectivity, vMotion, HA, everything we will be doing on practical mode. Okay, so this is how we have finished our theoretical concepts. Now we'll be actually moving on to the practical mode.